friends, welcome back to my channel. We're here today with a short review of a short book. We're going to be talking about The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Leo Tolstoy. This is the Russian master who has given us tomes like Anna Karenina and War and Peace. But maybe you've been a little intimidated by getting into one of those really big books first. So maybe you want to try out Tolstoy's shorter fiction. The Death of Ivan Ilyich is a story that he is said to have written about 9 years after he completed Anna Karenina and didn't write any fiction during that time. So the death of Ivan Ilyich is maybe him getting back into the waters. And it's really interesting. It's really immersive of a story. It's pretty short, like I said. My copy that I read was just about 70 pages of text. It's 12 chapters, each of them about 5 or so pages long. And we read about the death of a man through flashbacks and reactions from the people in his circle. So it's really interesting, I find, when a character is going to die in a story, that the author lets us know early so we don't get too invested with this character. And we don't want to get invested in them getting better or avoiding some incident or whatever it is that causes their death. We don't get lost, like we don't spend unnecessary emotion on things that the author knows isn't going to happen. So this is the kind of story that you know right away, before you even read a word, the title tells you Ivan Ilyich is going to die. And what's really interesting with how Tolstoy chooses to tell the story is that we see his colleagues, his fellow judiciary members, reading the announcement of his death in the newspaper. And, you know, in our time, that may feel like it's a little removed, but we have to remember that this is set in the 1800s. And so during that time, that was how a lot of communication happened. It was slow and people learned news from newspapers. So his colleagues learn about his death by reading it in the newspaper. And we are privy to the reactions that they speak, but also a little bit of their thought process as they hear about the death of one of their fellow judges, and they're thinking about the opportunities that his death creates for each of them individually. And then we move into one of his colleagues attending the funeral and seeing the reaction that this colleague has, but also the family members, what their external reactions are as well. And then later, we get a little bit into the philosophizing, the thought experiments that Ivan Ilyich goes through before his death. So it's a really interesting storytelling technique, I think, when the author goes back and forth in time, shows us some of how the story ends, and then shows how it gets to that point. And this was really immersive, I think, it's short. You could probably read this in a sitting if you have, an hour or so to sit down and read. But even if you don't, if you alternate between reading this book and reading something that's a little bit more upbeat, you will find, I think, that this is a story that is pretty immersive and you can stick with these characters. Some of the things that happen in Russian novels is there's lots of different names that the characters are called depending on who is the speaker. And I find that this doesn't happen as much in this book because we are focused on just a few characters. And every time the author mentions the characters, he shows the connection. He doesn't just say names and the names are different. He shows the connection to Ilyich. It's really interesting to kind of explore how these characters are able to compartmentalize emotion versus opportunity, and how their thoughts about this man's life and death fit into each of those categories. The philosophy that Tolstoy engages in as we go through the experience of Ivan Ilyich, recognizing that he is dying and thinking about life, thinking about his life, but life in general, and the connection that the book makes with a spiritual exercise. Like, I don't want to give too much of the story away because, like I said, it's pretty short, but I think there's a lot in this book to enjoy if you are a lover of literary fiction. I think the story is really worth your time. I think it's really worth your checking it out and seeing if you get on with The Death of Ivan Ilyich, and then maybe you want to tackle one of Tolstoy's bigger works later. And so I really enjoyed this. I buddy read it with Rosalie and Columbus. That is my eclectic readers buddy reading group. We read different kinds of books at different times. This is one of the shorter works that we wanted to kind of round off the year with. So I was really happy that Columbus suggested this one, and I read it because I don't know if I'd have picked it up myself anytime soon. But since I read it, I want to encourage that you read it as well. I think this is a really great way to get into Tolstoy's writings, get in and out, and decide for yourself if he is just too bleak, if he's just too philosophical, or if you enjoy the fictionalization that he gives you, the thought experiments that he invites you along as you kind of stick out through an experience with a main character. And so The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Leo Tolstoy is today's book discussion. I hope you enjoyed it. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more. We'll be back soon with another review, another book that I've read recently that I want to share with you. So thank you so much for watching this video. And until next time, happy reading. Bye.